1893. A trainload of businessmen rumbled into Gardiner, Montana. They had come to see the new gateway to Yellowstone, the world's first national park, and they found a wooden arch made of pine logs. The sign on it read, "Roosevelt Arch," already, even though nobody had asked Roosevelt. The arch was rickety, leaning, and looked like it belonged to a barn. The businessmen laughed. The park was only 21 years old. Every year, 12,000 visitors came by stagecoach to see geysers shoot boiling water into the sky. The entrance, though, was an embarrassment. The north entrance was the only one that stayed open all year. It needed something real. President Theodore Roosevelt loved Yellowstone. He'd gone there in 1883 as a young rancher in the Dakota Badlands and spent 2 weeks hunting. He came back in 1901 as vice president and again in April 1903 as president, this time by train. He arrived at the north entrance at sundown on the 23rd of April 1903. The army band struck up "Hail to the Chief." Roosevelt jumped off the train, waved his hat, and shook hands. Then he turned toward the entrance and saw the wooden arch. Reporters watched his face. They saw his smile drop. Roosevelt turned to the Army Corps of Engineers officer standing beside him and said, very quietly, "Get this thing down." The Army engineers had a problem. Roosevelt wanted a stone arch. Yellowstone's north entrance was remote, frozen half the year, and miles from any railroad. Stone had to be hauled in by wagon. Carving had to happen on site. The engineers started sketching. They drew a 50-foot arch, modeled on the Roman triumphal arches Roosevelt had seen in his European travels. They chose local Yellowstone basalt, dark, gray, and rough. Across the top, they carved the words, "For the benefit and enjoyment of the people," straight out of the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act of 1872. The work began in October 1902 and finished in the spring of 1903. The morning of April 24 was bright and cold. Roosevelt stepped forward with a silver trowel to lay the cornerstone. The ceremony took 15 minutes. Roosevelt laid the cornerstone, made a short speech about preserving wilderness for the American people, and waved to the crowd. Above the arch, on the wooden scaffolding the stonemasons were still using, a worker's bucket of cement tipped over. It slid down the plank, fell the width of the arch, and landed square on the hat of a rancher named John Q. Bird, who had pushed to the front of the crowd to get a better look. The hat crumpled. The rancher went flat on his back in the dirt. A hush fell over the crowd. The rancher sat up. He pulled the bucket off his head, dusted off his coat, and tipped his hat to the president. Roosevelt laughed. The crowd laughed. The stonemasons above him went white. The bucket of cement had cost about $3 in 1903, roughly $110 today. Roosevelt kept going back to Yellowstone. He visited 4 more times between 1903 and his death in 1919. He used the Antiquities Act of 1906, which he'd signed, to set aside 18 national monuments and add land to existing parks. Under him, the national forest system grew from 43 million acres to 194 million. The arch was finished in August 1903, 4 months after the cornerstone ceremony. It stood 49 feet tall and 58 feet across. It was built of local Yellowstone basalt with a sandstone trim. The Army called it Roosevelt Arch from the start. The locals, however, had a different name. For many years, they called it Teddy's Gate. The name didn't stick. Roosevelt's name did. Today, the Roosevelt Arch still stands at Gardiner, Montana. It is one of 3 stone entrance arches built for American national parks in the early 1900s. Cars drive under it on US Highway 89. The original cornerstone is still there, with Roosevelt's silver trowel marks. The arch has been repaired twice, once in 1915 after a lightning strike, and once in 1945 after a chunk of basalt cracked off in a hard winter freeze. Both repairs used the same stone. Both kept the original inscription. The bucket of cement that hit John Q. Bird's hat was probably thrown out. The hat, reportedly, is in a private collection in Billings. The man is long gone. The arch is still there.